Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on what time you're viewing this podcast. This podcast series we call Race, Culture, and the Church. Race, Culture, and the Church. This podcast series began 1 week after the murder of George Floyd, and we have over 50 episodes, recordings, if you will, since that point in time. And I invite you to go back and peruse the different topics that we've attempted to explore and the different luminaries that have come into this space. But I can say without question that one of the biggest and brightest guests that we have had here is here again, the soon-to-be mayor of Sacramento, Dr. Flo Cofer. Doctor, welcome into this space.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you having me back, Pastor Meeks.
I appreciate you in every sense of the word. I won't, you always like to, hedge your bets and say, well, whether you're mayor or not, the soon-to-be mayor of Sacramento, just thank you for who you are and being 100% authentically Dr. Cofer.
Thank you.
I've followed you carefully, and you, if nothing else, you have been very consistent.
Thank you.
From the very time that I first was made aware of your run for mayor to the time that you've come into this space, I won't say I'm a stalker, but I do view, and I listen, and I hear, and your message has been consistent. And in a time and place where authenticity is just a word, you're living it out. And I getting emotional just saying this. It's like, I appreciate you.
Thank you.
You are who you are, and you are bringing your whole self to the conversation, and that's hard.
It is hard. It is. I there are intentional decisions that you make along the way. And one of them for me has been how I show up in spaces, because there's this way that when you're starting your career and when you're trying to do something that you're following the pattern of people before you. But there were always things about like, who is a professional and what is this supposed to look like and how are people supposed to show up that troubled me because they were very narrowly constructed, right? And so I made a very intentional decision that during this campaign, I was going to wear colors that I enjoyed and the earrings that bring me joy, because I like to, I love Ebony London ear art and I love to really express myself. And so when we did the KVIE mayoral forum and with the Sacramento Bee, I wore these, these big earrings that were made specifically for me, and my name means yellow flower in French. And so, so the artist had made these really big earrings that have yellow in them, and also my campaign colors, because they also happen to be my favorite colors. And I thought a lot about like, should I be wearing earrings this big? Like, what are people going to think? But one of the things I wanted to push the envelope on is, here I am on a stage. I'm the first Black woman to ever run for mayor of Sacramento. And there are young women looking at me.
Correct.
And they're deciding what professional looks like. I now have this stage and I get to redefine what professional looks like. And now I'm saying you can be professional and wear your bright colors. You can be professional and wear your, ancestral robes. You can be professional and wear your larger earrings, because part of being prepared for this space is not just conforming to what it looks like, but it's also expanding the opportunity for who belongs. So I want my campaign to really embrace and embody that government is for all of us, for people who, who look different and who sound different and who have different ideas, because it's supposed to be a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. And I want to be one of those people who really shows up as my authentic self and gives other people permission to do the same.
Where did that aspect, that I don't say aspect, it's not an aspect, that fundamental core of who you are, can you go back in time and point, it's like, boy, that was my mother, my father, my grandmother. It's like they pushed me to be me.
Yes, I will definitely give credit to my parents. They're especially parents of their age and of their background. There used to be a saying, children are seen and not heard. And my parents were both educators. And so they didn't take that approach with me. They very much encouraged me to have a voice. They encouraged me to have the fire that was within me. They encouraged me to ask questions, even if they were difficult questions that they weren't always sure how to answer. And it gave me the confidence, I think, to really rely on myself. My parents gave me enough independence to, be able to make my own decisions and enough support to feel like I could. And so I really credit both of them, but especially I think my mom set an example of what it means to have, to raise a strong-willed girl and shower her in kindness, but also allow her to be able to be herself.
And to make mistakes, no doubt.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'll never forget my favorite parenting story is when I was about 16, I was going out on my first date and I was really excited about it. I had gotten permission. And then I realized we had never had this curfew conversation. So I say to my mom, I come down, I'm working up my nerve because I'm going to try to lobby for, what I want as this curfew. But I didn't have enough because I didn't want to lowball myself, right? I want to say, I'll be back at 9. And she's like, oh, you could have said 11, right? So I come down and I say, hey, Mom, I'm going out this evening. What's my curfew? My mom is reading the newspaper and she looks over the rim of her glasses, tilts the paper down and says, if you don't know what time to come in, you don't need to go out.
Wow.
And pulls the paper back up and just keeps reading. And I'm standing there like, so 10:30, 11. Like, what time is that? Like, I was expecting her to give me an answer. But what she said was she knew my personality enough that she wanted me at that moment to have the maturity to be able to decide, do I need to still be here or not? Because as a teacher, she had heard about a student who was rushing home to make curfew and got in a car accident and thankfully didn't die or anything, but it was a really bad accident. And she was like, I don't want you to be so focused on not getting in trouble that you don't use common sense. If you're tired and you're someplace safe and you want to spend the night there, call me and tell me that. Like, if it's time to go because you have class tomorrow morning and you have things to do, come home and get some sleep. Like, I'm not going to be with you for the rest of your life to police your decisions. I want you to think about them.
Let me suggest something, Doctor. You need to take that quote and turn that into a book. I'm serious as a heart attack right now. That is a phenomenal quote. And I don't know if your mother authored that or she borrowed that.
I don't know either.
That is great. If you don't know what time to come back,
you don't need to go out. Yeah.
That bespeaks of great parenting.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you the opportunity to be you.
Yeah.
But if you is not responsible, stay home.
Yes. Yes. And I appreciated it. And she, one of the things she said to me years later was, I always came home a lot earlier than she thought I was going to.
I left money on the table.
Yeah.
What's the deal?
Because it just felt like, part of it, I think, was the psychology behind, like, it felt very grown up, right? That I got to govern myself. And so then I didn't feel the need to abuse it because I had the freedom. I didn't have a time I had to be home. So why not now?
So undoubtedly, I don't know if we touched on this in our first iteration of our conversation, but you appeared to have grown up before your age actually would say you were grown up, that you were mature before your chronological time.
Yeah.
So as you enter into that space of becoming Sacramento's next mayor, possibly you could be the grown up in the conversation. Possibly.
Yeah. I think maturity does come with years. And so I have said to many people that I'm glad that I'm running for the first time for office in my 40s and not in my 20s, because there are a lot of ideas and opinions coming at you all the time. And I think being in my 40s, I have a lot firmer roots in who I am. And I don't feel like I'm kind of swaying in the wind with every, more experienced person's opinion about what I should or shouldn't be doing or what they think. I can actually take that in as as advice and weigh it against, where I want to go versus feeling like I have to do this because this is what people tell me. And so for me, that's helpful. And that's not to discourage anybody else from running when they're younger, but I just know for me, I have a really stronger sense of self because I've had time. But I also think, some of the wisdom comes from experience. And, I mentioned, I think on the last podcast, or I've said it a lot, I lost my dad when I was 11. And we were at my aunt's birthday dinner and he collapsed. And so that will grow you up in a way, right? It makes you aware of the fact that life can end very quickly.
Correct.
It makes you aware of all of the things that can change around you. It makes, everybody around you becomes vulnerable in that moment, the adults, right? Because they're experiencing the same loss as you. And so you also see them more as people as opposed to the giants among you, right? Like when you're watching your aunts and your uncles and you're like struggle with their grief, it humanizes them in a way that sometimes it may have taken many more years to see. And so I think for me, that is a pivotal moment in my life. It shaped how I see the world. It shaped my literal career, right? Wanting to figure out how we can put more years in people's lives and more life in people's years. And so I think some things happen from experience and some things require time. And so I feel like at this juncture, I hopefully have enough of both, some experiences and some time to really be able to guide the city and have some vision and still be young and idealistic enough to hope for and energetic enough to hope for better. And so I'm really hoping to bring all of that to bear. And that's why being my authentic self is so important.
And apparently, you're not alone. Not only do I agree with what you just said, but so does the Sacramento Bee. And let me just read this quote and recommendation. As we spent time with these 4 individuals talking about the mayoral candidates and considered our endorsement, one among them emerged from outside the usual suspects of Sacramento politics as the choice to succeed Mayor Darrell Steinberg. Interesting word choice, the usual suspects. This change agent offers an inspired vision for Sacramento and deserves voter support in the March primary, speaking of Dr. Cofer. The Bee editorial board endorses Cofer to be the next mayor of Sacramento. In a field of aspirants loudly calling for change, Cofer is the most likely to bring that change. She has the most potential to dramatically transform the Sacramento political landscape in the next 4 years. And that landscape desperately needs transformation. Amen. At 41, they gave you up. At
They
40,
did give me up.
At 41, Cofer is the youngest of the four top candidates in this race. She is the only woman among the top 4, and she could become the first Black woman elected mayor in city history. That is that's an incredible endorsement, incredible statement. Your reaction, your reflection on that.
I felt very seen by the entire article, or piece, I should say. I felt very much like what I have been trying to say, what I've learned from being a part of so many of the city, boards, committees, and commissions, and working with advocates and working in communities and having friends with people who, being friends with people who are like, I don't even bother to engage because this is just too much, and people who are impacted by the system but may not, be as directly involved in it. And, and really thinking about what all of us need and what all of us are hoping for and why some of us disengage and why some of us engage more. And I really felt like they captured in that entire piece the feeling of the moment, which is that we do have to build trust. We have to engage more people. We need some energy. We need some optimism. We need some courage to speak truth. We need some relationships. We need to be able to laugh at ourselves. We also need to be able to have sober moments. And I really appreciated that there was like a complexity to that they were able to capture so well. It really made me feel seen.
I would agree. I would agree wholeheartedly. So since the last time we were in conversation, there's been quite a few mayoral debates.
A lot. I feel like we're on tour together.
It's not Taylor Swift. It's the Eras tour or anything. No. How has that experience been for you? And have you, I won't say evolved. I get, again, as I've followed, trolled, stalked your trajectory, you've been very consistent. But what has this process, if anything, done for you?
I think it has allowed me to really get a pulse on what people are seeing and feeling in the same way that knocking doors has. Being in a space with people and being able to see their reactions and, hear their sighs or watch their heads nod gives you that kind of feedback that you can't get in other ways that are more divorced from the human experience. You get to, in real time, feel what's happening, the energy literally in the room. And I'm very much a feeler. So that I kind of go, like, there are people I think who see things, so like, they're like, oh, this is what's happening. And I'm a person who I just kind of move towards based on vibes. And it has really, it has mostly worked really well for me in my life in terms of gravitating towards, but I couldn't put into words why I went this way versus that. It's just feelings. And being in a room with a group of people and being able to say things and hear and then be able to have them come up to me afterwards and ask additional questions or say what they liked or didn't like is that real-time feedback that allows me to hone the message so that I can deliver it even more impactfully. But also it allows me to really connect with people because I'm the person in the field who's introducing myself. Everyone else is, identifying themselves as a candidate for this race, but they've introduced themselves to the Sacramento community more formally in past campaigns and in their work as elected officials. And so for me, this is the opportunity to be able to say, hey, you may or may not have ever heard of me before. And if you haven't, that's okay. I've never been an elected official, but here's what I've been up to. And here's what I'd like to see us do. And here's how I see things. And here's why I want you to be a part of it. And what that vision looks like and what I see as some of the challenges. And it's been really inspiring to see even people who, have come into a room supporting another candidate nodding as I'm talking about things and saying, wow, I really appreciated what you had to say. Or, I am looking for, I hope you stick around regardless of the outcome of this election. That means a lot to me because what it's saying is that people see the value in a different perspective.
Mm-hmm. The fact that, as you said, you're new to the process or new, I hate to say the game, but you're new to this. Not unlike President Obama, where he was a community advocate. He was a state elected person and then became senator.
Yep.
But it was a very short period before he was introduced to the country and became president and was transformational in many ways, both in terms of his presence, but also the things he was able to accomplish. Do you see yourself... Again, I'm not trying to compare you to President Obama. That's not a bad thing to do. But do you see a similar trajectory, if you will?
I think among the differences that separate the two of us, I really am committed to local politics. I like the coffee shop vibe. I say to people, the difference between, running for some of those other positions because people get ahead of themselves and people are already saying, after this, you should. And I'm like, first of all, I'm focused on this job. I don't think I want another one. But what I like about this is that you're going to see me in the coffee shops and you're going to see me at the dry cleaners and you're going to see me at the park. And I live in this community and I'm here. And the more, the higher up you go in terms of our tiers of governance, the less that's true. The more you spend time with your colleagues and the more you spend time away from those communities because the nature of the job is different. And that's not a knock on them. It's just a different job. Yeah. And I like the local part. I like the part where you're, out in communities and really getting to know people. And I'm really looking forward to being able to set up an office with community engagement, staff who are really keeping their ear to the ground and talking about and brainstorming and workshopping new ideas. That excites me. It excites me about the transformational element that can happen when you know people's names and faces and when you see them and when they see you and when you're embedded in community together. And that's something that's really special and can do a lot for shifting communities in ways that are sometimes deeply entrenched and are difficult to move. It's harder to move when the higher up you go. It can happen, but you kind of need that base. You need to loosen up the soil if you're going to transfer the plant, right? Because we're talking about making big changes, not just pruning some leaves here and there and picking some fruit, but really actually we need to move this over here because it's near the water lines and it's causing problems and it needs to, we need to uproot. We need to do some pruning. We need to do all of it. And being able to be closer to that ground to shake it up makes it easier to make some of those big moves because you can build trust. And
Transformation, real change can be, not only is it disruptive because it's real change,
yes,
but there could be an element of, dare I say, pain, discomfort,
yes,
resetting of a bone in a break or something along those lines.
Yes.
Are you sensing from, again, your time campaigning, are you sensing that community, city of Sacramento, is ready to, okay, it's time to break up the ground, to borrow from your metaphor?
That's exactly what I'm sensing. People are frustrated with what has the sort of as we've always done things kind of approach. And they're rapidly seeing that as we've always done things isn't working because so many of the circumstances shifted really quickly. And, taking just homelessness, our number one issue, as the prime example of this. Everybody is frustrated. We've knocked, tens of thousands of doors, and every person has named homelessness either as their number one issue, or if not number one, it was like number two after something that was hyper local. Like, we need some speed bumps on this street because 2 kids have been hit. And also, what are we going to do about homelessness? It's right there, right? And so I think we have reached this critical point, and I point to Measure O, which was the ballot that our business community put, or the initiative that our business community put on the ballot back in 2022. And even though it wasn't, I was not in support, it was not going to do the things we needed it to do because it was basically just giving private citizens the right to sue the government, which I'm like, how does that help us with housing? That can help us maybe with people feeling upset because we haven't done what we're supposed to do, but it doesn't actually help us house people, and the money should be going towards housing. But people were so desperate that they were willing to turn to anything. They're like, anything is better than what we have right now. And so when you get to that point, people are more willing to shake things up because the existing has made everybody uncomfortable. It's not working anymore. When how we're doing things still works for a good chunk of people, they're uncomfortable shifting things.
Correct.
But once it comes to the place where everybody's uncomfortable and everybody needs something different, you have now the ability to be able to make some changes. And people aren't always going to like what those changes look like, but they're more willing to bear with them if they make things better. And so I think that's the opportunity that Sacramento has right now, is that everybody's frustrated.
One of the things that you'd brought up, and I've seen consistently you've mentioned about your ability to engage in productive dialogue and partnerships. And I'm thinking specifically about the city of Sacramento and the county of Sacramento. Are you sensing in what you're sensing, the desire for change and just transformational change? Are you sensing that the county is ready to, no, we're ready to partner and make some real change?
I am sensing that. And I'm sensing that there has been a lot of, ego is something we all have. But I feel like a lot of times egos have entered the rooms before we have. And so the egos are fighting things out instead of the people leading with their vulnerability and with their goals. And so what's really challenging about that is that people suffer because there is this infighting or this jockeying for who's going to have power. And I think the most uncomfortable part about running this campaign is that I have to spend a lot of time sharing with people this vision for what I'd like to see happen. And there's a lot of focus on me, but that's not how I like to lead. I actually really like to work in partnership with the people that I'm doing things with and not take credit for things, because I know success has many parents and failure is abandoned, right? And so nobody wants to be responsible for things that fail, but everybody wants to be a part of things that are successful. And so I'm sharing ideas now because people have to have enough confidence that they want me in the room. But I really want these to be, owned and championed, and the credit to be given to the people who I'm going to work with on them. And so that's the thing I'm really looking forward to, because it feels good to be able to be behind the scenes championing people to be able to do something really powerful and moving in the right direction, and just being able to set the plan and let other people really shine. And we have so many people in our community who have great ideas and great leadership skills and can move us in the right direction if we just let go of the reins a little bit and invite them into the process.
Have you heard along those lines, have you heard in your door knocks and conversations, have you heard, has an idea risen to the top where you said, boy, yeah, that sounds like, yeah.
Yeah, we've got actually, a lot of the things that I've incorporated into my my talks and my speeches have come from ideas that people have shared with me. I sat down, I said, from the very beginning, I'm not taking corporate PAC money, but I'm willing to sit down with anyone. And when I sat down with, the apartment association and some of the chambers and some of the developers, and I started asking, well, what are the pain points? What are the things that are making it so it's difficult for you to build projects and build affordable housing projects? And they've said, well, the materials costs are going up. And so I'm like, okay. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, well, don't the airlines like buy, their fuel well in advance and lock in a price so that when the prices go up and down, they're not subject to that? I was like, well, could we do that? And they're like, yeah, it's actually not a bad idea. Like we're having this dialogue where I'm literally sitting down and saying, look, I don't want your money or your endorsement, but you're a key partner in this. And I need to know what's not working for you so we can figure out what will work. Then they say, well, okay, yeah, that'll work. And then also the length of the projects. And I'm like, well, don't we kind of already know where many of these projects would be placed? Could we do some of the CEQA, review in advance so it doesn't have to be part of the project timeline? Like, couldn't we just engage in that now? And they're like, yeah, I guess we could do that. And they're like, but a lot of times communities use CEQA, the environmental review, as an opportunity to be able to hold up projects so they can get their, like, the things they want for the community. And I'm like, yeah, that seems like a bad idea, but what if we just did a community benefits agreement with every community in Sacramento in advance? So we already know what communities want in terms of local hire and, maybe, invest in this park, do this, that, and the other. So when you come to do your project and you say, I want to build here, we say, okay, great. Here's the CBA that this community has come up with already, right? We can do the same thing for our safe ground, right? Like, if we need to plant safe ground here, the community gets to say, these are the things we want to have in place to make sure that there's not blight, that there's not trash, that this is not going to, be disruptive to our community, and it's actually going to be additive. And I'm like, and they're like, yeah, I see. So like some of these ideas are coming up because I'm having these conversations with people who are identifying what's not working. And then we're able to say, well, what if we did something different? What if we spread out the cost so you didn't have to pay it all up front, but we did like a mortgage so you could pay it over time, so you're not burdened with these upfront costs. And so you have a little more time to make the money once your project or your business gets off the ground. Like there's all these ways that we can be creative together when we sit down and actually talk to one another.
This is wonderful. Now I understand even more after even this conversation why it's so necessary to be engaged in these community conversations, to hear it and to hear it again and to hear it again. We're in a sprint now. This is the first part of February. We've got about a month to go before the primary. I know. So between now and primary day, and I encourage everybody to register to vote and to vote, what are you focusing on? What's your focus?
Our focus right now is really getting out the vote, making sure people know, my name, know that I'm on the ballot, know where to get more information so that they can make an informed decision. We, of course, voter ballot information guide was sent out about a week ago to registered voters in the county that has everyone who is on your ballot in there in our ballot statements. And please read it because I spent $12,000 to make sure it was in there, which is like, feels like highway robbery. But those 200 words cost 12,000 US dollars, backed by the gold standard. Wow. So please take a moment to read them. But, that's for many people, that's if they're not, engaged in watching news and doing those other things, this is their introduction to all of the candidates. And so we really tried to, explain who I am and what I stand for. And of course, link people to the website so that they can find out more information. But we have a lot of information on our social media channels, on our website, really being transparent about this is where I stand on things. And I think that's important for people to know what my values are as they are deciding who they want to lead. And then, of course, we've done, a lot of forums. So many of those are available online so that we're, just encouraging people to really get to know and get to compare the candidates, our visions for the city, our backgrounds, and how we are approaching things. And so what I'm going to be spending a lot of time doing is getting people out to vote, making sure that people are submitting ballots, and making sure that, they know about me before they do so.
We will have the URL, the website information on this podcast so folks can go and find out more information about Dr. Cofer and her campaign. Is there anything you would want potential voters to do, or folks that want to support you in your endeavor? Call to action?
Yes. I would say, time, talent, treasure. So if you were able to take a few moments to be able to sign up on our website for our email updates so you're staying up to date on what's happening with the campaign, it's really helpful. Share those messages with your network, encourage them to sign up so that we are getting our message out far and wide. We also love having, your talent. So if you are a person who is good talking to people or wants to work on that because you're in Toastmasters or whatever, please feel free to come out and knock doors with us on the weekends. Those one-on-one connections are actually my favorite part of the campaign, honestly. Like, I sometimes will say, okay, if I do all these other things I'm supposed to do, call time to raise money and this, that, and the other, then I'll get 2 hours to go door knock because I just enjoy it. It's like such a reward. People are so incredibly kind at the door, and they tell me their stories about their lives and about their hopes and dreams and the things that haven't worked for them and their pain points. And it's really instructive, and it helps me, I think, be a grounded, person in this race. So that's really helpful if you're willing to knock doors with us on the weekends. And if you are more of a homebody and want to make phone calls, we do that on Wednesdays and Thursdays. And so there's an opportunity to sign up for that as well. But it's really a matter of, connecting with people, sharing the story, not just to your timelines online, but also in your group chats and when you see people in real life, because we all know that, there's a way that I can have a personal interaction with, as many people as I can, but there's also the trusted messengers who say, this is my person and this is my why. And that's a story that only you can tell. Mm-hmm. You don't have to have memorized my platform or all of those things to be able to tell it. It just comes from the heart, and it means a lot to other people, and it really does help to sway voters. So that's the call to action: is fit in where you can, whatever makes you comfortable.
There's a Dr. Cofer, I'll butcher it. There's a Dr. Cofer-ism that you use with regularity, that if you continue to do the same thing the same way, mm-hmm. You're wasting your time expecting a different outcome.
Yep.
Is that how it goes?
If you do it, if we do what we've always done, we'll get what we've always got.
As the bee said, I'm just quoting the bee, that you stand apart from the usual suspects. And that's why you have, if I were given the opportunity to suggest who to vote for, I would say, if you want someone who was articulating a very different path to transformation, you absolutely need to look at Dr. Flo Cofer. She has presented a vision of how we can move from point A to point B. Is that a guarantee for success? There's no guarantee for success. There is absolutely no guarantee for success. But if you want to continue along the path of what we have always been doing, then you pick anybody you like. Dr. Cofer, it is an honor to have you back into this space. It is an honor to know you on a personal level. And I have been and will continue to pray for you and with you as you carry on the good fight. And after March 5th, we have to have you back into this space.
Yes, definitely. And it's. I mean, obviously, you're voting my name and my opponent's names are on the ballot. But you're really with my campaign. It's a people-powered campaign. We're really betting on us, because it's really going to be us that are governing. And I think that's the key distinction beyond anything else. Some of my opponents are using very similar language to talk about how we address some of the challenges that are facing our city. And so you may be saying, oh, well, the difference is I'm proposing that we work together to do it. I'm saying this is a city where 30,000 people wake up early on Thanksgiving morning to do Run to Feed the Hungry because they want to support the food bank. And that's a community that cares. And we really should harness that power to so many other of the challenges that we have here, because people are willing to roll up their sleeves if our government, helps to articulate a vision that we all can work toward. And I think even more so than money and, and policy, I think being able to articulate that vision and allow people to see themselves as part of the solution is part of the transformational change. And so I really am encouraging you to vote for me so you can bet on yourself.
Thank you, Dr. Cofer.
Thank you.